Howdy, howdy, howdy. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome back to the ANG Cast, the podcast where we talk about video games and everything in between. This is episode 5, Our Favorite Movies, part 1. This is a new multi-episode arc of the ANG Cast that I'm very excited to get into. So I'm joined today by special guest Aaron from Final Fridays and also past episodes of the ANG Cast and Game Dev Tycoon. How's it going, Aaron?
I'm doing all right. I tried to get my cat to meow on the microphone. But
I heard it for sure. That was very funny.
Okay,
yeah,
good. That's good. I'm really happy about that.
Forever immortalized in the annals of ANG history.
I kept holding him up near the microphone, and he just wasn't doing anything.
Well, I was hoping that I could get one of your cats to talk about the movie Cats with me at some point, so this kind of works out.
You know, they were big fans. They didn't understand what all the fuss was about. They were really into that CGI.
Well, representation matters, like I always say, and I'm sure they just enjoyed seeing.
That's what my cats always say too.
Yeah. I think a fun series.
It's the only thing that they say.
Because your cats are much more talkative than my cat is, so I think maybe one of these days we could do one-word movie reviews with your cats, and every time they meow, it's like they like it or they don't.
Yeah, we have to interpret it.
Yep, I like the idea of that. So we're off to a great start here already. But anyways, the purpose of this series is it's going to take more than one episode to talk about movies because obviously Adjective Noun Gaming is all about video games, but we also cover a lot with music, movies, and TV shows. And if the podcast that I did with Aaron and Alex last year, any indication, we can very clearly spend 2 or 3 hours on our favorite stuff. So my idea was to make this series called Our Favorite Movies, and this is part 1, where Aaron is going to talk about, I had him make a list of some of his favorite movies of all time, and we're going to discuss them. And then in the next episode, we might have Alex's, then we'll have Christa's, we might have Ben's someday, then we would end with mine. However many it takes, and it probably won't be sequential, like we won't do all the movie ones in order. We'll probably just do them every once in a while, but... So for today's purposes of the podcast, we're going to talk about Aaron's favorite movies, or some of them. I'm sure you probably have like hundreds of them that you could talk about.
Right.
You have a narrowed down list here that you've prepared. So if you want to go ahead and dive right into that first one, be my guest.
Well, I would actually, this is going to dive a little bit into spoiler territory, but Ben's top 5 movies?
Yeah.
I just imagine all 5 of them are going to be the movie Watchmen. So.
Yeah, I think so. Ben's really deep as a person, far beyond our understanding, and I could see that. See that. That would be in my top movies of all time, for sure.
Would it? Top 5?
Not top 5, but like top 20 probably.
Oh, okay.
Somewhere in there.
I'm only looking at top 5 today.
That's okay. No, I don't know how many I'm going to do for mine, and honestly, we can, if you want to do more ever, we can always come back to it. This doesn't have to be your be-all, end-all list, too. I didn't want to start a movie podcast. I just kind of wanted to integrate it into the ANG thing, because for the longest time, Chris and I have been talking about making like a themed podcast before the ANG cast ever became a thing. Like, we were going to do a Twilight Zone watch-through podcast. We were going to do a movie one. We were going to do a music one. But I think it's easier to just do little sections within our ANG cast, because we cover a wide variety of media on streams and recordings anyway. So I feel like the podcasts can do the same thing.
Yeah.
So anyway,
if I do appear for multiple episodes, I think my next list will be my least 5 favorite movies, and then my list after that will be my 5 middle of the road movies, as in I'm going to list every movie I've ever seen in my life, and I'm going to pick the 5 that are right in the middle.
Movies that you only watch when you're in the middle of a dirt road in the middle of nowhere.
Right.
Everybody's got their their top 5 dirt road movies.
Oh man, now I want to change my list. I want to think of my dirt road movies. I definitely am going to throw Dragon Wars on there.
Dragon Wars, god damn, that is a throwback. Holy shit. Yeah. Man, that movie on the posters and maybe even on the case was just called D Wars too.
Yeah, I think it was.
Holy shit.
Talk about a dirt road movie. Yeah. No, you really need to go back and watch the trailer for that at some point. Man. Because I don't even know back in the day why they thought that was going to be a thing that was going to work out well for them.
Hey, let me hit you with this though. Reign of Fire.
Oh man, that's a dirt road movie too.
It is. Our dirt road movies are all dragon movies.
Have dragons in them.
Yeah. Dirt Road Dragon movies, top 5. Here we go.
Oh man, something that's very surprising is I'm surprised the Resident Evil movies didn't have a dragon in them at some point.
Well, it's never too late. They're going to make a Resident Evil TV show on Netflix now, so.
Yeah, it won't be the same though.
Did you see where they're talking about setting it and what they're going to do? I personally think they're just going to cover what was covered in the first movie in the show, it's going to be like a serious take on it. Like, I imagine it's going to actually lean more towards.
Back up. A serious take on it? Are you trying to tell me that the Resident Evil films weren't serious?
Maybe the first one you might be able to call a little bit serious, but I don't know. I still laugh at those movies.
Yeah, I watched the first one the other day, and it holds up.
It's good.
It's got some bad parts in it, but it definitely is like a fun movie to watch.
Yeah, a couple years ago, I told you guys about this already, but I rewatched all the Resident Evil movies and 2 of the Underworld movies, and that should tell you where my interests lie. But
No, wait a minute. They made more than 2 Underworld movies?
Oh, they definitely did.
Oh, I don't even know what you're talking about. I can't imagine that that's a true statement.
So I really enjoy the Resident Evil movies. I almost it's not quite hate watching, but it's where my loyalties lie with the Fast and Furious franchise. Like, at this point, they can do whatever they want with Fast and Furious movies or Resident Evil movies, and I'm just going to watch them all.
What's your least favorite Resident Evil movie? I know what it used to be, and I want to see if it's still true.
It's not the third one anymore. I have kind of a new appreciation for the third one, but
right.
I would say
the third one's where it really started going off the rails.
The very last one might be a pretty big contender for my least favorite.
Yeah, it was pretty bad.
It wasn't great.
No, it wasn't.
It was hard to tell if it was the exhaustion of watching like 6 or 7 Resident Evil movies, but it didn't really hold up. But those first 3 are pretty great still. And then was the 4th one where they had the 3D one, the first 3D one?
Oh, I imagine. Yeah, that was the one where they were in the prison, right? Because then they go to Moscow in the 5th one, and then the 6th one is whatever the last. I'm gonna look it up on IMDb.
I was gonna say
right.
I don't.
Sounds right.
I watched these movies a couple years ago, so it might as well have been 10 years ago because I don't remember any of that.
Man, I hope that everyone listening is a big Resident Evil fan.
Yeah, this is the Resident Evil episode. Top 5 Resident Evil Dirt Road movies.
Unfortunately, there is no dragon in them.
Yeah.
It's probably my only Dirt Road movie that doesn't have a dragon in it. Resident Evil, then Apocalypse, then Extinction, then Afterlife. Yeah, so that's the 4th one. That was the 3D one. Which, man, they really.
But was Afterlife in the prison, or was that a different one?
Afterlife was the one in the prison.
Because is that the one? That's the one where the guy with the hammer comes in, or the big axe? Is it that one?
The big axe hammer thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So then, what's the 5th one?
The 5th one was Retribution,
and then
that was the one where I think Leon was in it.
Yes, I actually liked that one.
Yeah. No, that one was a fun romp.
Yeah, it sure was. It was fun. That's a word to describe these movies. Is fun.
Oh no! Do you know what I just realized?
What?
So the director of those movies is currently working on and will be released soon the Monster Hunter movie. And you know what the Monster Hunter movie is definitely going to have?
Dragons.
Yeah, so it's going to be a Dirt Road movie as well.
All right. So how many Resident Evil movies were there? Were there just 6?
There were 6.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know why I thought there were 7, but all right.
There's 7 games right now, and then 6 movies.
That makes sense.
You know the best part too is that the 6th Resident Evil movie is the worst, just like the 6th Resident Evil game is the worst. So they did a good job there. At least they were consistent.
Yeah, there's continuity in both series, and I just also realized there's probably way more Resident Evil games than just 7 because Code Veronica X isn't a numbered one.
Right. Yeah.
The really weird Wii game that came out where you can it was like a light gun
what was
game.
That thing called Umbrella Chronicles or something?
Something like that. I think there was
another one. I think they did 2.
And then there's that game you have for the Switch, Revelations 1 and 2.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah. Hey, we should probably stop talking about Resident Evil.
I don't know, man. I think we could make a Resident Evil watch movie podcast. That doesn't make... Okay.
I would do a Resident Evil rewatch podcast right now.
Oh, man. We got to keep that in mind someday.
I will definitely do it. Okay,
all
so
right.
What is your first movie on your list?
I have made my top 5 favorite movies of all time, and I'm pretty sure this is like a lock. Like these five are the movies that I would consider my favorite movies. And I got a little bit of everything. I got some horror, I got some action, I got a little bit of comedy in here.
Okay.
And a lot of these too, I have a lot of memories like watching them or something happened, or whatever. It'll make sense when I start talking about it.
Yeah.
I also have an honorable mention, and I'll bring that up probably about halfway through.
Okay.
So my number 5 is Shaun of the Dead.
Fuck yeah.
And I'm gonna, before I like talk about it, I'm gonna talk about kind of my story behind it, because you were involved in this, and it's a really like fun memory to think back on. I remember my dad running that movie, and I think he watched it, and then he got done with it, and you were over, we were hanging out, and then we go downstairs, and you see it sitting on the TV stand, and you go, "Oh, I wanted to see that movie." My dad said, "Whatever, take it. You guys can go and watch it." And I remember you and I sitting there. We got maybe 10 minutes in, and then we're both just kind of like, "Hey, I don't like this very much. Let's stop watching it."
Yeah.
And then we did. We didn't finish it. And it's so funny to me because I look back and like that movie is one of the greatest movies of all time.
Yeah.
Probably one of the best horror comedies of all time too.
I think it is my favorite horror comedy of all time, and it's like in my top 5 zombie movies of all time too.
Yeah. Well, I'm not going to say it's my favorite horror comedy because I might have another one of those on my list.
Oh, gotcha.
But there's just something that's just so great about that movie. The comedy is just perfect in it. It does a really good job of just kind of spoofing that whole horror genre.
Mm-hmm.
And probably one of my, like thinking back on it, one of my favorite moments is whenever the group is, I forget where they're going. I think they're going to his mom's house at that point in the movie. And then they meet another group that is basically just them, a different group of people.
Yeah.
And there was just something about that I've always just remembered and always just really liked that moment.
Well, Zombieland 2 did that recently, like the doppelganger thing with like Thomas Middleditch being like Jesse Eisenberg and then Luke Wilson and all that stuff. So I like when movies do that. That's pretty fun.
Yeah. And actually, if you look up the trivia for that movie on IMDb for Zombieland 2, it like basically says that they blatantly stole that from Shaun of the Dead because they liked that moment so much in Shaun of the Dead.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. So there's just so many moments in it that are just so memorable. Them throwing the records at the zombies.
And deciding which ones to throw out and which ones to keep, yeah.
Right. The jukebox scene in the bar near the end.
Yeah.
Where it starts playing Queen. Just a phenomenal moment. And then they have all the fighting that kind of goes to the music. And I think a lot of stuff in that is kind of like built on like with Baby Driver.
Yes.
Right. I think that he kind of like it's just so cool kind of seeing his movies and seeing how well he times stuff to the music. And it's kind of cool that he took that idea and made a whole movie out of it.
For sure.
Yeah.
So it's funny that you brought this movie up because I literally watched it this week. I think I watched it on Tuesday or Wednesday, and I probably have like 20 pop figures at this point, and a lot of them are at my desk at work, but some of them are here at home, and some of them are still in boxes. But I shit you not, the 2 that are on my computer looking at me right now are Sean and Ed from Shaun of the Dead. So I needless to say, I am a huge Edgar Wright fan, and I fucking hate myself looking back on the stuff I didn't used to like because it was more or less like I didn't understand British humor, and so I think
that was exactly what it was, right? I think that we started that movie and we were just like, what's going on?
Yeah, it was very different compared to stuff that we had grown up watching, and so I think like it came out in the early 2000s. I mean, we were still kids at the time, so really the only exposure to other British humor I had at that point was Monty Python, and I've always liked Monty Python and the Holy Grail, but I've never been a huge Monty Python fan or anything. But Shaun of the Dead was kind of my gateway into British humor, and especially being an Edgar Wright fan. Now, the Cornetto trilogy and Baby Driver and his other movies are some of my favorite movies of all time.
Yeah.
Like we have
I think we would have been like 12 or 13 whenever that movie came out. That seems right.
That makes sense. We have a Baby Driver poster hanging at the bottom of our stairs, and we had a maintenance guy from our apartment people come over and fix our toilet recently. And Christa said, like, they always come when I'm at work, so I'm never here to see it. But Christa said that guy said nothing the entire time he was here. But when he got to the bottom of the stairs and saw that poster, he says, "Hey, I like that movie." So it's a pretty universal thing. I think some people don't get into Edgar Wright stuff in the same way they don't want to get into like the British version of The Office. They might just not like British people or their humor. But
Yeah.
at this point, I'm like
Well,
upset.
it's so different, right? It's not
Yeah,
anywhere near kind of like our humor, like American humor, and it's just it takes a different type of like you just have to kind of sit down and really it takes a little bit of time to appreciate it.
absolutely. I'm upset it took me this long to come around on. I mean, it didn't take me too long. Like I probably started
Yeah,
becoming,
I think
but
by the time we were in high school, I think we had both decided that we loved Shaun of the Dead, and I
oh
think that
yeah,
was around the time probably Hot Fuzz came out, which I think was only a couple years later.
yeah.
Because Hot Fuzz is another like top movie of mine of all time. Kind of in the same vein of Shaun of the Dead. Just everything in it is so clever and so well like shot and so well kind of executed. Um, and I think that after watching Hot Fuzz, I wanted to go back and watch Shaun of the Dead, and that was whenever I kind of fell in love with that.
I kind of have a weird memory around Shaun of the Dead too. It has nothing to do with you, but I remember back in the day, like we lived in a small town and we had to drive a ways to get to a Walmart, like in any
Mm-hmm.
direction. And I remember for some reason, very specifically, I had gone to Walmart with my parents and they were going to buy me the newest season of the OC that came out.
Uh huh.
And there was an older guy that was probably like, I mean, this is like when Shaun of the Dead first came out. So, like you said, we were probably like 11, 12, somewhere around there. And this older guy who's like probably in like his 20s or 30s or something comes in, and it's like, I guess it's like his younger siblings who would have been like our age. But
Uh huh.
I just remember standing there looking for the OC, and then this guy was standing there with his like brother and sister who were much younger, and he was like looking for a movie like really hard. And he
Uh
actually
huh.
had an employee come over, and he just kept telling his brothers and sisters like, "Will you guys be quiet? I'm trying to look for my movie. This is my favorite movie. I'm looking for my movie." And so he like calls an employee over, and he's like, "Yeah, I'm looking for a movie called Shaun of the Dead. Do you guys have that?" And Walmart had like a couple copies of that, and the one guy was like, "Yeah, we didn't order many because we didn't think people would buy this."
Yeah, I to some degree, I imagine that that happened a lot of places.
Yeah.
Because I think Shaun of the Dead really was just kind of a surprise hit. Because I think at that point, the only other thing that Edgar Wright had really made that had gotten any sort of like good press was Spaced.
Yeah, which I still haven't seen that. I need to watch that.
Oh yeah, you gotta watch that. Space is amazing, but it wasn't a big thing in the U.S. It
Yeah.
was a big thing over in the U.K., but we didn't. I don't know. It didn't really get big here until Edgar Wright's movies started getting big here. You know?
Yeah, so I think oddly enough, that's how I first heard about Shaun of the Dead was hearing just some random older guy talk about it, and I was like,
Yeah.
"Well, this guy seems cool. This movie might be cool." And then like we probably went to our movie rental place and saw it there, and then I didn't actually want to actually watch it until I saw your dad had it, and I was like, "Okay,
Yeah.
well, Doug watches some cool movies, so
Well, I think Dad really liked it too.
yeah,
But like I said, I remember just us watching it, and we were just like, let's just turn this off and do something else.
yeah."
Like,
We had very specific taste when we were younger.
yeah. But I mean, all of his movies. I remember World's End. I traveled, I think, an hour and a half to get to a movie theater so I could watch World's End.
Yeah.
The day that it came out, just because I was so excited and like loving. I loved Shaun of the Dead and Hot Fuzz so much.
Mm-hmm. I think me and Ben and TC did a double movie feature in one day of You're Next and The World's End.
Oh, okay.
I'm pretty sure, because I'm pretty sure we saw The World's End here, and then we went to some tiny theater in Kent. And that's the one we were walking on the stage in front of the movie because nobody else was in You're Next.
Yeah. Oh man, what was Your Next about? I remember there's like a mask.
Yeah,
But
Your Next
I
is one
remember nothing about the movie.
legitimately one of my favorite horror thrillers of all time. If any of you out
I
there
need to
don't
watch
know
it
what
again.
that
It's
movie
been
is,
a long time.
I think it's on our Vudu account, so you can watch it on there.
Okay.
But it's so fucking good. It's one of my favorite horror thrillers ever. It's just basically like a home invasion movie, kind of like The Strangers, but it's kind of like a from within invasion thing. That's all I'm gonna say. But it starts out as very much a horror movie, and then it turns into more of a thriller, like an edge of your seat, like what's gonna happen next kind of movie.
Okay. Yeah, I'll have to watch that again.
It's absolutely fantastic, and the soundtrack is really, really good.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah.
Shaun of the Dead. That's a fucking great movie.
Right. So Shaun of the Dead would be my number 5. My number 4, and this might actually surprise you a little bit, but my number 4 would probably be Hot Rod.
Hot Rod's a very good movie.
Yeah. Well, and there's just something about that movie. Every single time I watch it, I just am like so enamored by the whole thing.
Yeah, no, it's like it's almost a miracle that that movie exists and as
Right.
funny as it is. Like it has no right being as good as it is, and I don't think a lot of people watch that movie.
I don't think so either. And I think though that a lot of the comedy that came from that is just like Andy Samberg's style, and I feel like it wasn't that big whenever we were younger, but I feel like that sort of comedy has really like hit now.
Oh, for sure. Like stupid,
Yeah.
like very like
Like
non sequitur comedy is
right,
pretty much a way to
absolutely.
describe it for sure.
Random humor in some way.
Absolutely.
So, and I feel like that was just kind of like there was just something about that movie that I loved, and I think that a lot of it had to do with the fact that the cast was relatively unknown.
Mm-hmm.
The humor was just like, I mean, it was great. I still Cool Beans is something that I say probably at least
Yeah.
4 or 5 times a week.
Yeah.
Uh, and just the whole kind of idea like of an underdog story that they wrapped in it as well was just, I thought, a really interesting and a really just well done movie.
Mm-hmm. The story with Hot Rod with my dad. My dad is pretty notoriously hard to please when it comes to almost just about anything, but he has a very specific taste in stupid comedies, 80s action movies, and I guess just 80s and 90s movies in general, and 90s comedies especially my dad loves. But my dad never really understood like The Lonely Island and why that was funny. He's never really been, because I tried showing him Popstar after finding out how much he liked Hot Rod, and he did not like Popstar. Which is just so weird because it's like the same
so
kind of
weird,
movie.
right?
But
Yeah.
I'll never forget, I showed my dad Hot Rod. I've never, in the 28 years I've been alive, I've never seen my dad laugh harder at a movie than I've seen him laugh at Hot Rod. And
Yeah.
when I was like getting ready to move out back in 2016, he was of course like sad to see me go, but I think he was really sad that I was going to be moving and taking Hot Rod with me too. So I think eventually
that was the only reason.
yeah, that was the only reason he was sad I was leaving. So I'm pretty sure I still had DVDs at that point, and I just let him have my DVD of that movie. And he tells me he still watches it like pretty regularly.
Yeah.
But that scene where the guy dances and throws the flyers around, I'm pretty sure that's my dad's favorite movie scene of all time because he'll just watch it on loop.
What was that
yeah.
guy's name again in that movie? I'm trying to think.
Oh man. Now I can't remember. I'll look it up.
can't
But
remember.
yeah, you talk about it more because I'm sure you've got a story about it too.
I don't think I do.
Oh, you don't have a story? Didn't you see it in theaters?
I guess that's true. No, I do have a story about this. You're right. So I remember I loved the previews for that movie so much, and I just had to go and see it.
Yeah.
And it was really close after I got my driver's license, I think. So I think you were busy or something was going on, and I was able to get to the movie theater, but I couldn't really find anybody to go with me.
Mm-hmm.
And I sat in the movie theater with this. I mean, she had to have been a grandmother and her 2 grandkids. And it was just the 4 of us in the theater.
Yeah.
And I laughed the whole time, and they didn't laugh at all.
That's very
Now, they
funny.
stayed for the entire movie, but you could tell they did not care at all about that movie.
We had some really good and weird experiences at that theater in general over the years.
Oh,
like
we
our
did.
favorite movie stories come from that. That guy's name is Richardson in the movie, by the way.
Richardson, that's right.
He was also in Popstar as Club DJ, which I did not realize he was in that too.
Oh, wow.
No, my favorite experience at that theater we ever had was for the movie Quarantine.
Yeah.
Me and you sharing the theater, the entire theater. It was probably like a summer day. It was like in the middle of a day, which explains why nobody would have been there. And there was just one random guy. Like we sat near the front and he sat in the back, and we sat there and watched that whole movie. And we actually liked it quite a bit compared to the way most people didn't enjoy it. But
yeah,
that guy like hung out in the back when the movie ended and waited for us to walk up to him, and he just goes, "That movie fucking sucked," and then leaves. Like he had to tell somebody.
He had to get his money.
Yeah, like him telling us that movie sucked, like got him his like $8 movie ticket.
So this was a different theater, but I don't know if you remember whenever we watched Shutter Island.
Oh yeah.
And how, I mean, it was a fairly packed theater. There was a lot of people there, but I remember that you and I were sitting on the edge of the row, and then this lady came in and decided that she had to sit right beside me.
Yeah.
Even though there were empty seats throughout the theater.
Yep. Oh yeah, that's. I am so thankful for reserved movie seats now in such a major way. It just
Yeah.
like, I mean, if it's a busy theater, you still have a chance of getting somebody like that by you. And even though
Yeah.
people can choose their seats, they still cluster around where other people have sat. I've never understood that, because if I see an empty row, I always pick that row, like when I'm
Yeah.
picking my movie seats online. But there's people that like, we've gone to see movies. I think it was when I went to see The Lighthouse last year. There was like maybe 4 or 5 other people in the theater, and we all sat within the same 2 rows. But
Yeah.
but like when I bought my tickets, I was the only person that had purchased tickets online. So that told me that those other 4 people like purchased tickets purposely to be around other people. And I get it.
Yeah.
Like there's like a sense of community when you go to the movies. But like The
Right.
Lighthouse isn't really a movie that anybody's going to be vocal during, I don't think, or laugh at.
Uh, I can definitely tell you. So speaking on this, the movie A Quiet Place.
Oh, yeah.
I remember I went to that movie and I met up with a coworker there to watch that movie. And about maybe 20 minutes through that movie, we both kind of looked at each other and we're like, we got to move away from each other.
Yeah.
Because he was eating popcorn. Every once in a while, I would take my drink and I would take a drink of it. And like, just any noise from that movie was just miserable.
Yeah.
just the worst.
Yeah.
So I remember too, you were telling me during that movie you had people that were running up and down the aisles like because they couldn't sit by each other, like getting popcorn.
Yeah, that was really fucking frustrating.
Oh man.
Yeah, that was. Oh my god, I forgot all about that. Yeah,
Yeah.
like the theater was packed, so I don't know if that was it. I think we were able to pick seats at that time, but like when it's a really busy movie, you still run into the situation where there's like rows that only have one seat left. So I think what had happened was it was like a group of like 4 people, and one of them bought a tub of popcorn, but it was like they were all sitting by themselves, so they would just run up and down the aisles during the movie. Like they would just put it in their hoodie. Like they'd make their hoodie into a bowl and carry the popcorn back that way. Like just ask for a fucking free cup.
Right.
It's like, god damn. Like I honestly applaud now is I applaud people who go to the movie theater that are prepared. Like I saw an older woman at the last movie we saw, which I can't even remember what it was now. Oh, Birds of Prey.
Okay.
An older woman brought in, she had a tub of popcorn and she had a giant drink, and it was just her and her older husband. And she brought like a baggie with her, like a what do you call it, like a freezer bag, like a Ziploc freezer bag. She filled up his bag like so full that he didn't need to refill it again. And then they like asked for a free cup, and she poured some of her liquid into his. And then I didn't hear from them again for the rest of the movie. So that's the way people should be doing it. But that amount of thought is something that nobody else would put into it.
Now we've strayed a little far from Hot Rod. We can get back to that in a minute. But I did want to know if you knew that this happened. So that Birds of Prey movie.
Yeah.
Did you see that they changed the title of it?
They did. It's a real Edge of Tomorrow and Live, Die, Repeat situation going on there.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, I mean, like, on all the advertising for that movie, like, the emancipation of one Harley Quinn was just it wasn't a subtitle, but it was, like, at the bottom of the title. So, like, I feel like everybody just called it Birds of Prey, but I feel like the fact they needed to change it so that people knew it was a Harley Quinn movie. But I also feel like, why would you be going to see that if you didn't know who Harley Quinn was or didn't like comics or Suicide Squad or whatever?
Right.
So I don't know. It's really confusing.
That being said, the number of people who liked Suicide Squad, I don't think ended up being a very high number.
Not very high, but they're very committed to it.
They are, yeah. They're definitely daddy's little monsters.
Yep, that's me. I have the shirt and everything. I have the little bat and everything.
I know. You post pictures all the time of you in it.
You've been telling me to stop. I just don't want to listen.
Yeah, well, I get the addiction damage, you know?
So Hot Rod, huh?
This is my hat now. Totally my hat.
Totally my hat. I've been drinking green tea all goddamn day. I go to church every goddamn Sunday.
You're gonna bring the demons out of me.
God, he is so good in that.
Oh man, and I used to be legit.
Now I'm too legit.
I was too legit.
Too legit to quit.
I was too legit to quit, but now I'm not legit. I'm unlegit. And I think now I gotta quit. I think it's something like that.
I think it's I must quit. I don't know, but
yeah. I don't remember.
People, listen, if you're listening to this, and just fucking watch Hot Rod, please.
Oh man, I remember too the scene near the beginning. Like, you look pretty. What? Oh, I said you look shitty.
Bye, Denise.
Like, can I, Denise?
Good night, Denise. Yeah. It's so good. Like if you like dumb comedies and haven't seen Hot Rod, what are you even doing?
All right, so now I'm going to bring up my honorable mention, and then we'll talk about my top three.
Okay.
And I don't even know if we'll talk about my top three as much as we talked about these two.
That's
movies.
fine.
My honorable mention, though, is the movie Cloverfield.
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah. So my experience with Cloverfield was I missed it in theaters, mainly because leading up to that movie, everybody had so many ideas of what that movie was going to be.
Yeah.
Right. I remember it was a lot of people thought it was going to be a Thundercats movie, the new Godzilla movie. Like it was across the board. Everybody had their own idea of what that movie was going to be.
The new Voltron movie.
The new Voltron movie. That was it. That was another one. And then that movie came out, and it was none of those things.
It was like that was the really cool thing about it. Like I remember I went to see that in theaters with my dad, and I called you as soon as it was done to talk about it because I was like, I need to talk to somebody about this movie.
Yeah.
It was very cool.
Well, I hadn't
like
even seen it, right? So I didn't end up watching that movie until it came out on DVD. And I remember like the day, like I was waiting for it to come out on DVD, and I ran to the store and bought it day one.
Yeah.
But it was so funny because once I heard that it wasn't any of those movies, I lost a little bit of interest in it.
Yeah.
And I still cared about it. I still wanted to see it. But the hype leading up to that movie was like nothing else.
Well, yeah, because like I don't remember another time in my lifetime where they showed a trailer that was so mysterious, and like because most trailers nowadays especially are very direct, and you can like basically get the plot of the movie in a trailer now, which is really frustrating. And then like and I mean, listen, I love the Fast and Furious franchise, but the last two trailers have been like 4 or 5 minutes long. It's like at that point you could literally just watch the trailer and be fine if you're not that interested. So,
right. Well, the people who are going to go see the Fast and Furious movies are going to go see it no matter what's in the trailer. So.
But I don't know why they think a 4 or 5 minute trailer is necessary. And then like my local theater before Birds of Prey, they didn't play any trailers, which was really fucking weird.
Yeah, you were telling me about that. That's strange. Like to some degree, I would rather them do that. Like I'd rather them show like very quick trailers, like maybe a minute long.
Yeah.
More like teasers than the actual thing. Because what I'm finding now is they just give away all of the movie.
Yeah, well, that and every trailer is so like publicized online now that there's very slim chance that I haven't seen it already. And especially since Christa and I still have cable, I see movie previews all the time.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, now I'll let you talk about Cloverfield more, but I just remember like that movie is good and I still enjoy it, but I think you're 100% correct in saying that like the thrill of not knowing what I was getting into going into it, I think the only time it's ever been rivaled was the Blair Witch Project, which started the found footage genre, and then I think Cloverfield kind of reinvigorated it in the mid-2000s when that came out.
Yeah, no, I agree with that.
But Blair Witch Project was the same thing, and I think that hit harder for me because I watched that in 1999. I was 8 years old. And so, yeah, my parents like got that movie. I remember like that movie was legitimately like people thought it was true because that kind of movie was never made before. My parents were, cause my mom like is really big into Bigfoot and other like myths and folklore like that. So she of all people was like, hey, there's this documentary out called The Blair Witch Project and it looks really spooky. And it was kind of like they weren't really showing movie trailers for it or anything because it was so low budget and you didn't really see spots for it on TV. So it's kind of a word of mouth thing. I think my Uncle Bill, which is her brother, was the one who told us to watch Blair Witch. And I have loved that movie since the day I watched it, but I'll never forget, like, I wasn't really able to get on the internet back then, but every indication was like they had a website for this movie that had like a missing poster for those three people.
Yeah.
And there's just a whole phenomenon. So Cloverfield never really got to that point. People knew it was a movie. But I think the found footage thing died off for a while and then came back with Cloverfield. And it was just so exciting, like speculating what could this movie possibly be about.
Right. And you don't really, like I said, you don't see that anymore, right?
Yeah.
You all, like, almost any movie that comes out now, you know exactly what you're getting into. Mm-hmm. And I mean, the big thing of Cloverfield is that it didn't end up being what anybody thought it was going to be, which kind of a good thing and a bad thing, right?
Yeah.
Because really, at the end of the day, it didn't really end up being anything.
Yeah, it really didn't. Like there was a plot, but a very loose plot, and it kind of just resolved very abruptly at the end. If you guys have seen Cloverfield, you know what I'm talking about. But to be fair, every like found footage movie usually ends with the person dropping the camera and that being the end of the movie,
right?
Or something along those lines. But
But the other thing about Cloverfield that was kind of weird is I remember that movie ending, and we're sitting there like, oh, they're gonna make a sequel to this movie. They got to make a sequel to this movie.
Yeah.
And then they never did for so long. And then whenever they finally did make the sequel, 10 Cloverfield Lane, what they did with 10 Cloverfield Lane is they took a movie, and I think it was originally called The Bunker.
Yeah.
They basically took that entire movie, and then they just added on 10 minutes at the end to make it into a Cloverfield movie.
Because it really, to this day, part of me kind of wants that movie to be separate from the Cloverfield universe. Because I remember when the trailers first came out, I was like, this doesn't really seem like a Cloverfield movie. But I know that you and I were wondering, like, when's the Cloverfield twist going to happen in this movie? Like, there has to be one.
Well, the thing that was so crazy about 10 Cloverfield Lane is, like, it alone was a great movie besides that last 10 minutes trying to connect it to Cloverfield.
Yeah.
And it's kind of weird that they felt the need that they needed to connect it to Cloverfield. Because, again, at the end of the day, it really wasn't connected to Cloverfield.
Do you know what it kind of like the plot of that movie, like just a small group of people together in like a bunker or whatever, it like kind of reminds me of A Quiet Place a little bit without the quietness, but like just them being in the same place forever and not being able to really do much.
Yeah.
And that alone, like I love like post-apocalyptic or like dystopian stuff like that where people, or like survival movies, I guess is a better term, but
yeah.
You don't really see too many other movies like 10 Cloverfield Lane, and it's a shame that they felt they had to connect it to Cloverfield, and then even more of a shame that Netflix movie they made.
Yeah, I was going to talk about that next, the Cloverfield Paradox.
Oh my god, I never even watched it. I couldn't bring myself to do it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, man. So the thing that's so weird about that movie is that whenever you watch it, you can tell that there's like two different movies going on.
Mm-hmm.
And that's because that was another one where they made a movie. It was called The God Particle. I had been like following it since like they announced that they were working on it.
Mm-hmm.
And then near the end of the production of The God Particle, they were like, well, no one's going to watch this, so we're just going to tie it into Cloverfield.
Yeah.
And they took moments of that movie and they just shoehorned another plot in. Mm-hmm. So like The God Particle, that entire movie was supposed to take place on a space station.
Mm-hmm.
And the Cloverfield Paradox, there were so many moments where it just like shot back to Earth. Mm-hmm. And there were just scenes happening on Earth while they were up in space. Yeah. So, like, the Earth stuff had almost nothing to do with what they were doing. It was just thrown in there to make it a Cloverfield movie.
Yeah, I mean, I knew you had watched it, and you told me that it wasn't great, and I was basically just hearing, like, that was another thing, is, like, it seems like with Cloverfield, there's much more excitement in the, like, lead up to the movie than the movies actually end up delivering. I will say the first Cloverfield did deliver on it, for me at least. Yeah. It wasn't what I was expecting it to be, but in kind of a good way, because I hadn't seen anything else like it at the time. And then 10 Cloverfield Lane was also mysterious. But then I remember they dropped the Cloverfield Paradox like during, was it the Super Bowl or something?
During the Super Bowl. Yeah. I think it was last year even.
Which seems
or 2 years ago.
Yeah, I was going to say 2 years ago. Like it feels like it happened yesterday.
Yeah.
But it's, I was so excited for it to drop. And then immediately once people started watching it, I was like, oh man, this isn't going to be good.
Well, I think that's the reason that they dropped it during the Super Bowl, because they knew that it wasn't that great, and they were like, we're just going to release this and get it done with and move on with our lives.
Well, plus, like, arguably, that's probably the time of the year when you have the most possible eyes on TV screens as you can get.
Right.
So that was probably the best possible timing they could have had. And I'm always down for a surprise release, but it has to like deliver on the surprise.
Good movie, right?
You can't just make it a surprise release for the sake of it being a surprise. It has to actually deliver. And I feel like if we narrow it down to that, I think Cloverfield might be the best like surprise / unknown film we've seen in our lifetimes, because I truly don't remember. If any of you out there are listening, and if you have any other things you can remember, leave it in the comments below here on YouTube. But I don't remember a movie that's ever been so mysterious that actually kind of delivered on it. Like you didn't know what was going to happen from one moment to the next.
Right.
I don't know. Right. I just feel like I still love movies, and I always will, but I think they've lost the unpredictability factor that movies like Cloverfield used to have.
Right.
But.
All right. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to give you my third movie.
Oh, yeah.
And it is The Evil Dead.
Hell yeah.
The original Evil Dead.
Although the new one is really good.
Although the new one is very, very good, yeah.
Yeah.
So my journey with The Evil Dead started with the third movie, Army of Darkness, where there was a point in my life where and I'll talk about this a little bit later on. I was just picking up a lot of movies and just kind of watching a bunch of stuff. And then my dad really got into it as well.
Yeah.
But he really got into it with horror movies. So we would go to buybacks or the exchange, and we would just look through movies that were like $5, and we would just kind of pick up a bunch of them.
Yeah.
And then watch it whenever we could. But he picked up Army of Darkness, and that was one where he watched it and he got done. He was like, Aaron, you got to see this movie. He's like, it is so good. You're really going to enjoy it. And I remember sitting there for that movie, and it's cool because that movie, The Army of Darkness, him like with the chainsaw and holding it up in the air, it's such an iconic picture.
Oh, yeah.
So like when I got the movie, whenever he gave it to me, I knew exactly what it was. But I had never seen it. I knew nothing about it. I just knew that picture. And then watching that movie and finding out that it was a comedy as well, as an action movie and a horror movie, was just something else. Like, it was just so enjoyable. But the best part about all of it is that my dad and I, we watched it and we fell in love with it. So he goes out and he buys The Evil Dead 2.
Amazing. So watches it backwards.
And we sat there and we watched The Evil Dead 2, and we just absolutely loved it. And then we got done with it. We're like, well, we probably should watch the original movie. So we went back and then we watched the first Evil Dead. And it's so cool because that movie was, I think, really made to be a horror movie.
Oh, yeah.
But after watching the other two, there was just so many elements of like where you could find comedy in that movie because it was so low budget, and because you knew what that show or what that series was going to become later on. And there's just something really iconic about that original Evil Dead movie.
Yeah. I
watch it all the time, about once every year. Just kind of take it and just pop it in and then just sit back and enjoy it. And I don't do that as much with the other Evil Dead movies. There's just something about that original that is just classic.
Yeah, it's we both took a while to come around on. I'm trying to think of what the word is, like cult classic or like pulpy old horror movies that were like really weird and quirky. Like I've been a horror movie fan since I was a little kid. My dad first showed me the classics like Friday the 13th, Halloween, Nightmare on Elm Street, all those. But I did not come around on Army of Darkness and Evil Dead until I was probably like a teenager and an adult, honestly. But,
I mean, probably because I think I watched it before you did, and I don't think I watched it until 2007 or 2008.
So yeah, we would have been like late teenagers. And I remember I watched Army of Darkness first because that's the way you guys watched it, and I didn't like it. And then once I went back and watched Evil Dead 1 and 2, I had a little bit more context, especially since it's how Evil Dead 2 ends and goes straight into Army of Darkness. But
I don't think that was the thing that I liked so much about Army of Darkness, is that it was so off the wall, and I could tell that there were things that I was missing, but at the same time, it was still just so off the wall that it was enjoyable. Sorry, go ahead.
No, it's the most fun movie out of that franchise for sure, and it's very lighthearted compared to the first two. But I don't know, there's something about me. It's almost like the problem I had with BioShock Infinite. Like when you make 2 horror games in a franchise and then decide not to make horror games anymore. Like it was a really jarring experience for me to like have these expectations of what I thought the Evil Dead franchise were going to be, and then getting Heart of Darkness, Army of Darkness instead. Yeah, the Heart of Darkness, the Apocalypse Now. Yeah, but yeah, Army of Darkness for me is like it's the most lighthearted and fun entry in that franchise, but I think it's my least favorite. I think I like Evil Dead and Evil Dead 2 a lot more.
And I'd probably agree with you with that 100%. No, I would, not probably. I would agree with you with that 100%. But there is just something that is so cool about the fact that every time they made one of those movies, they took a risk and they tried to make something new.
Yeah, for sure. Like, and you don't really see, like, a lot of movies now are very safe and very straightforward, and people don't really take chances as much as they used to like that.
Right. Especially with like a series or like a movie that already has a foundation.
Well, especially since like those movies never really made that much money and they were pretty low budget. So like the fact that he was basically making these movies for nobody but himself, I think to a certain extent, like he was making it because he wanted to make them that way.
Yeah. Did you ever watch Ash vs. Evil Dead?
No, that's the only thing Evil Dead I've never seen.
At some point, you'll need to sit down and watch that series. It is, it's worth it. It's not anywhere near as good as the other 3 movies, but it is still a really fun ride.
Yeah, no, you've talked about it before, and I've seen clips and stuff from it, and it seems really quirky and fun, just like the rest of the movies. So,
yeah,
but yeah, no, Evil Dead's fantastic, and that remake was really good. Who directed that remake? Was it?
I don't remember, and
Let me look it
I
up here.
followed the guy for a while, and I was really hoping that he would make more stuff. And then I think he made, what did he make? I know he made something recently. I'm not even gonna try to say his
So
name.
original Evil Dead
Don't
came
Breathe.
out.
He made that, and that was good.
Original Evil Dead came out in 1981. The remake came out in 2013, and it was directed by Fede Alvarez, I think is his name.
Yeah, that sounds right.
I don't know if that's how you pronounce his name or not, but yeah, he made Don't Breathe, Evil Dead, The Girl in the Spider's Web.
Oh, I didn't know he made that.
Yeah, I really really like The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, the American version with Rooney Mara and Daniel Craig. I've never seen the original. Like, are the original Girl trilogy? Are they foreign movies? Or are they?
They're foreign. Yeah, I can't remember what country, but I know that they are.
But I really, really like David Fincher as a director, and Girl with the Dragon Tattoo and Gone Girl are my two favorite David Fincher movies, I think. And then there's one more David Fincher movie I absolutely fucking love, and now I can't think of what it's called. He also directed Seven and The Social Network. That's the other one, and Zodiac.
Oh, that's right.
Zodiac is a really fucking great movie.
Yeah, I like Zodiac. I'm not. There's a couple of his movies that I'm not necessarily a huge fan on, but yeah, whenever he makes a good movie.
Oh man, he did Panic Room. Panic Room is really good. Yeah.
I want the Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, the foreign film, has Naomi Rapace in it. I think that's how you say her last name. Who actually, she was in Prometheus.
Oh wow, I wouldn't have put that together.
Yeah. I wouldn't have either. That's random.
But yeah, we've gone really far off the beaten path here, but as we will probably continue to do throughout this series. But David Fincher, like Gone Girl and Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, Social Network, Zodiac, the series on Netflix Mindhunter, he did that too. So yeah, and it's absolutely. He apparently was a producer on Lords of Dogtown, which was that skateboarding movie I love. Fucking wild. All right, sorry, I'm having my own self-discovery about David Fincher here. But yeah, Evil Dead, if you guys are into horror and haven't gotten into Evil Dead yet, I would say don't do it in the reverse order that Aaron and his dad did.
Yeah, definitely.
That's just funny. Like, that's a fun story to tell people. That's how you got into that franchise, though, for sure.
Yeah. I think the other thing that was really cool about the Evil Dead movies is especially the first one, and I think it was true for the second one as well, whenever those movies came out, they were like, they had the most blood of any movie at the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know, there's just something kind of fun about that, and this idea of looking at horror and just kind of the legacy of it.
Well, yeah, and then looking back on it too, like you said about the chainsaw hand, like, or is it arm or hand? Is it hand?
It's a hand, yeah.
Okay, yeah, like he loses his hand and then he just sticks a chainsaw on it at the end of Evil Dead 2. I always associated the chainsaw hand with the entire Evil Dead franchise, so I thought he was going to have it like by the end of the first one, and then it was shocking to me. The first one is like a pure horror movie. Like it's straight up a horror movie. Second one is where it starts to get very quirky. Like the scene where he's like laughing with all the taxidermy animals on the wall in the cabin. That's such a fucking hilarious part of that movie. But so Evil Dead is like good for people who like the first Evil Dead is really spooky and really scary. So I would say if you're like sensitive to scary movies or anything like that, don't watch the first Evil Dead. You could like look up a recap of it or something, but if you're into horror comedies, the Evil Dead 2 and Army of Darkness are definitely like not quite horror comedies, but they've got comedy parts in them.
Well, and the best thing too about the Evil Dead 2 is that whenever Sam Raimi went to make it, if I remember correctly, and I could be wrong about this, he did not have the rights to use any of the footage from the first movie.
I think you're right. So they had to like redo it with like,
like the first part of the second movie is a recap of the first movie, but then the whole second movie is kind of a remake of the first movie. Mm-hmm. And it's just like right at the beginning, it's just the most bonkers thing ever.
It's kind of a disjointing experience if you don't have the context for it, but...
Which again is, and I had no context for it because I watched them all backwards.
Yeah.
Cool. You have anything else you want to say about those?
No,
movies?
I think that's pretty much it. So yeah, we've covered a lot of good shit so far, and you said you have two more on your list you want to cover? Okay.
Yeah. My number 2 would be Die Hard.
Good action movie. One of the best, some would say.
Some would say. I would say it's one of the best.
Yeah.
That movie, so that came like that came to me in a time where I was just trying to watch any movie I could get my hands on. That was
Yeah.
whenever you and I kind of found out that we could go and get movies for about $3
Yeah.
at these couple resale shops.
Yeah.
Uh, and I just remember anything that I saw, I would just pick it up. And then I found out that I could get movies on Amazon for, again, a couple bucks. So I was just ordering everything. And I think there was a time in my life where I owned about 40 something movies that I just hadn't watched at
Yeah.
all.
Yeah, for sure.
And Die Hard just at some point in my life was one of those movies. And then one day I got done mowing my yard. I went in and I watched that movie, and I got done with it. And I just remember immediately starting that movie again and just watching it again. That movie was just like, there were so many good scenes in that movie and so many memorable scenes and just so many well-crafted moments that it's just always really stuck with me as one of like the best action movies that I've ever seen.
For sure. Absolutely.
So, and
yeah, no,
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no, it like, I don't love it in the same way you love it. It's a very, very good action movie. It's not my favorite action movie, and I haven't seen all the other movies in the Die Hard franchise. I've heard I could probably skip the last couple.
Yeah, there's a couple you could skip.
But I think I've seen the first three, but I don't think I've seen anything after those.
Four's worth it.
Yeah,
Four's
that's what I've heard. I'll get around to them
watch
someday.
Watch the unrated edition. Don't watch the PG-13 cut.
I'll watch whichever version I either have on iTunes or in one of our shared movie accounts.
Gotcha. So you're gonna watch the bad one, and
Probably.
You're choosing to watch the bad one. I'm just bringing that up.
I could seek out and buy the unrated version if I found it somewhere, but no, Die Hard's really, really good, and I have a weird relationship with Bruce Willis. He's a really shitty person outside of acting.
Yeah.
And a lot of that comes from hearing about Kevin Smith's experiences working with him on Cop Out. Because he was just a massive dick to Kevin Smith, and Kevin Smith, like, I don't know how much you know about him, but he's like he gets called like Hollywood's sweetheart a lot. Like, he's so nice to work with, and he just praises everyone up and down. He never has a bad word to say about anybody. But Bruce Willis, like, everybody working on Cop Out, like, wanted to stay late to like try to get the movie done, and he refused to stay late. He had like a set number of hours he'd work in a day. He fought with like the set people, the crew. He fought with Kevin Smith all the time. So I have a weird relationship with Bruce Willis, as I do with most people, where once I find out they're a piece of shit, I have a hard time enjoying anything that they're in. So for me, I find it hard to remove myself from that. Although I know Die Hard was back in the 80s, so it's easier.
Yeah, it seemed like he used to be a pretty nice person, a pretty easy person to get along with. And
he used to be
It seems like it's one of those things where fame really changed him.
For sure.
And he really got a pretty big head.
It's just we follow so many actors and actresses that are such good people that it's just hard for me to make room in my interests for somebody like him. But I don't really like any new Bruce Willis movies I've seen. I don't think. Like, I think maybe the most recent one I've seen him in that I liked was Looper.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say too.
But and I think mostly I just like that movie because I like Rian Johnson so much. But Die Hard's a really, really good movie, but it's like was it in my top 10? Did you watch the stream where Alex and I did our action movie list?
I think it was.
It was in my top 10. I think it was near the bottom.
Yeah.
I think it might have been like my number 10 or my number 9. I definitely for me personally, it's not my favorite action movie, but I have to put it up there because it's like what I have to thank for a lot of my current favorite action movies.
Right.
And I think, honestly, my favorite part of that movie might be Alan Rickman, honestly.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, too. Alan Rickman is just exceptional in that movie.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was his first movie role of all time, too.
It's that sounds right. Yeah, because I definitely, I didn't watch Die Hard until much later in my life after I had seen him as Snape in Harry Potter. So, he was kind of a villain in Harry Potter until you understood his intentions and stuff, and if you hadn't read the books.
Whoa, spoiler alert.
But anyway, God damn it. He's like a straight up villain in Die Hard, and he plays that role really well. So it makes his eerie presence in Harry Potter, it explains it. He's really good at playing foreboding, and he's really good with his words. He's really cunning. He's a really cunning villain. But
Yeah.
I think like when I go back and rewatch Die Hard, like his scenes are some of my favorites, and then Reginald Vell Johnson being in that movie
Yep.
too. Like I don't know if you ever knew this about him. I liked him from like what I had seen of him in like other stuff and TV shows, but that was like his last thing. Like that was his last shot. Like if that movie didn't do well, he was gonna call it quits on acting after that.
Yeah. So did you watch? I know you watched the series "The Toys That Made Us."
I have
Did
not
you
watched the
see?
movies that made us. Yeah, I haven't watched that
Yeah.
one.
So there's a whole thing in there about him, and it was really fun to watch that because I think that he doesn't really do a lot of like TV stuff anymore, or
Yeah.
like interviews and things like that.
Hmm.
But he did come back. Reginald did to be in that the movies that made us.
I
And
so
the
I
last little
watched
bit of it is worthwhile just to like see him
for sure.
and hear about his experience.
I watched the Home Alone episode of that series because that's one of my favorite movies of all time. And
Okay,
that
yeah,
episode, like, it's one of those that series I think is good as like a refresher if you love the movie. It doesn't really teach you anything new. At least it didn't for me about Home Alone.
yeah,
But it's just kind of a nice refresher. And then if any of the actors are still alive and around and want to be in it, it was cool that they brought like Daniel Stern back for Home Alone and had him in it for a little bit.
yeah,
But yeah, the cool thing about Home Alone learning was like how that movie like almost didn't happen, like and how they had to film parts of it in a school, like the same school that I think they
yeah.
filmed like parts of The Breakfast Club and Ferris Bueller in, which was really cool to learn about.
Yeah.
But
And there were things like that too on the Die Hard episode of it where it was talking about how it almost didn't get made and how they had all these people for the roles and they just kind of kept dropping out of it.
the more and more I hear stories about movies that didn't get made, I'm starting to realize I think every movie might have had a point like that. Like, because I feel like I keep hearing it's like
Make
the
a documentary
story.
about any movie.
Like it's a miracle that this movie got even made. Like it's honestly a miracle that any movie gets made because people are pitching people are pitching movies every single day. Like there's way more that we never see than we do.
Yeah.
So
I'm just happy that we got Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 2. I think everyone was worried that that wasn't ever going to get made.
yeah, we're very blessed in that aspect to have had
Right.
a part 2 of Deathly Hallows. But
I mean, after we got those first 7 movies, there was no guarantee we were made.
yeah, and there's no guarantee that they're going to keep churning out those Fantastic Beasts movies either. But we'll see. Fingers crossed.
Here's the best part: is that actually might be true.
Oh no, they're already making a third one.
I know they're making a third one, but I'll be curious to see if they keep doing that. The second one really didn't make that much money.
I still haven't seen it. I've only seen the first Fantastic Beasts.
Hey, here's the deal. I'd wait to watch the second one until the third one came out, because you could tell that this movie was like in the middle of a lot of stuff that was supposed to be happening.
Yeah.
And I don't know, it's not very good. It's not very good by itself.
So the one thing I'll say about the Harry Potter franchise, you know the whole history of it with Krista's dad getting into it very late. It's cool for people like him that really weren't into Harry Potter the first time around like we were because they're kind of getting their own experience with it.
Right.
Now,
I agree with that.
I think at this point we've seen so much of Harry Potter that we're kind of just done with it. I think at least I am. Like I don't think I really want them to reboot it. Like I'm fine if they want to keep making films in the universe, but like if J.K. Rowling is like I'm going to write a book 8, I'd kind of just be like really hesitant about it at first, I think.
Yeah. Well, the thing is that like we saw the best of it, right?
Yeah.
We saw the best of her universe, and I can't imagine it get any better from there.
Yeah.
And to some degree, it's kind of annoying that she's trying.
Yeah.
Right. It really just seems like a money grab, especially since it. I don't know. To some degree, it doesn't seem like they necessarily know where they're going with these movies.
Mm-hmm.
And I could be wrong. I mean, again, they've only made 2, and I think she has 5 or 6 of them planned.
Yeah.
But it just seems like it's not necessarily like something that we needed.
For sure. I agree with that 100%. But
It's kind of would be like she should have done something else.
So
not even Harry Potter related, just kind of something else.
I love that we went from Die Hard to Harry Potter, but at least this time there's a thread of Alan Rickman.
Yeah. He's connected to both.
Alan
I think we
Rickman's...
started talking about Harry Potter because I made a joke about how the 7th one almost did get made or something like that.
Yeah, the 8th movie almost never
The
came
8th
out.
movie, that's it.
Yeah. No, I feel it. But yeah, no, Die Hard is great. I came to it a lot later than most people did overall. That's all I could really say about it. I don't think I really have anything else to say about it other than it's a very, very good action movie, but it's not one of my personal, like, really high up there favorites. But
yeah. You know, I do hope that they make one more for multiple reasons. The first reason being that the 5th one was so bad that I can't imagine they could ever make a worse movie. But the thing with Die Hard is that they started, I think, all the way up to the fourth one.
Mm-hmm.
They took random books and they made them into the Die Hard series. So they would take a book and they would kind of change the plot to make it fit in the Die Hard universe, which I always thought was such a cool thing. But they never really went back and talked about a lot of the stuff that happened in the first movie.
Yeah.
And I think it would be really cool if for the last movie, if they made one more and he goes back to Nakatomi Plaza.
That would be really cool.
And they do something with that. Just some sort of like homage to the original. Because like I said, with those movies, it never really seems like they reference anything else that happens in that series. Parts of the second one, yes, but past that, they all kind of are just their own thing.
Yeah, for sure.
So, but that's it. That's all I got for Die Hard.
Okay.
And I'm going to end my list. Do you want to guess what my number one movie is?
Is this like your favorite movie of all time or just your favorite that you could think of?
My favorite movie of all time.
I don't know if I could guess that. You have a lot of favorites.
This is my hands down favorite movie of all time.
Damn. I don't know if I know that.
Are you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 2.
Don't know what I was expecting.
No, while that is a fine movie, not as good as the third one. Actually, we have a minute. What's your favorite Harry Potter movie?
I don't know. I think my favorite Harry Potter movie might be a little bit of an underdog here that is kind of a weird pick. I like the third movie.
Chamber of Secrets?
No, that would be really
good. Okay.
That'd be really weird, but yeah. I think Goblet of Fire might be my favorite one.
Goblet of Fire?
Yeah.
Okay, that one's legit. I give you that. Mine would probably be the third movie.
See, back when I was a kid, I did not like the third one because they changed it up so much.
I hated it. Yeah. I remember like they're running around, they don't have the robes on, and they're just kind of doing their own thing, and it was just so like frustrating because it was so different than the first two movies.
And I had read the books, so I knew damn well those robes were coming off, but I was still pissed to see it in the movie.
Well, then from there, then they made the fourth movie with a different director. And then you kind of got the idea that they were just all going to start doing their own thing.
Well, the whole franchise really is so disjointed at times because you get the guy who plays Dumbledore, he dies after 2 movies, so then Michael Gambon takes over and does 3 through 8. And then the third movie, they decide we're going to get that Alfonso Cuarón to be the director.
Which is just the most random choice ever.
Especially back then. Like, now he's a pretty... Yeah.
No, go ahead. Sorry.
No, he's like...
I think we're going to say the same thing.
No, he's a good director now, but I don't think he was very well known at that time. So the fact that they didn't bring Christopher Columbus back for another one was really questionable at the time, I think. And we didn't like it because it was so different and it was hard to process like change like that when you're a kid, I guess. But looking back on it now, the third is like one of my favorite books and one of my favorite movies in that franchise.
Yeah. No, I like. There's just something about that movie that I hated it whenever I didn't hate it, but I didn't like it as much as the first two whenever I watched it. And then going back and like rewatching the entire series, it's the one that I enjoy the most. Mm-hmm. In fact, to a degree, I don't really like the first two that much anymore. They're
really weird to watch them being that tiny. Like, I feel like I'm just watching toddlers walk around Hogwarts, but it's like weird because
just like the mood of those two movies is completely different than the mood of the rest of the series.
Well, I mean, to be fair, that's the direction the books were always going in. Like there's this 7-book long showdown like of built up tension between Harry and Voldemort, and you knew that it was coming, and you knew things were going to get darker because we followed along in the books the entire time. But by the movies were a stark contrast in comparison because first two movies were so joyful and lifeful, and you get to the third one and it's like every day is a fucking cloudy day and raining and storming. It's like, I get that it's London, but god damn, people, it's like, can we have like a sunny day for once? It's like, Jesus
use a little
Christ.
bit of magic to bring the sun out.
Yeah, seriously, whip your wand out and clear those fucking clouds for God's sake. I like thought about that the other day, like how dark 3 through 8 are compared to the first two. And it's like, I get it, Christopher Columbus makes nothing but like upbeat, joyful, happy ending movies, so I get that's why. But like, man, that series just took such a turn, and looking back on it, it was for the better because we got some really good drama and some really good like action and tension out of those later movies. But man, it's really weird.
Man, what has Christopher Columbus made recently?
I don't know. Well,
Well, he is currently writing 3, so that's really exciting.
he's writing what?
Gremlins 3, apparently.
Oh my god.
Um, can I can I tell you about his writing credits?
Honestly, yeah, you might as well.
So the last movie that he wrote that has been released was Christmas with the Cranks, and that was in 2004.
Jesus, it's been that long?
And then he wrote The Christmas Chronicles 2, which is currently filming. And then his other 2 writing credits are, and I can't believe I'm saying this, but The Goonies 2 and Gremlins 3.
Oh man, until you said the Goonies 2, I wasn't really that on board for Gremlins 3, but now I think I'm kind of excited for both.
Oh, I could be wrong. I think this just means that they're reusing his characters.
Okay. I see.
But that being said, wait, back up. Apparently in 1987, there was a video game that was released called The Goonies 2.
Oh boy, I didn't know about that.
So we already have a sequel, so that's
Damn.
exciting.
Trying to erase history.
Oh, so he wrote Gremlins and the Goonies, so that's
what's
why.
really important is that we look back on Christopher Columbus's career, especially the early parts where in 1492 he sailed the ocean blue.
Now wait a minute, I need to bring up a couple more things to you because I don't know if you know about any of these things, and you need to know about these.
Okay.
So I am still looking at Christopher Columbus's IMDb page, and his last movie that has been released. Do you know what it is by any chance?
No.
Pixels.
Oh, fuck.
He was the director of Pixels. But I do want to tell you about a movie that will be releasing this year that he is creating, which is The Christmas Chronicles 2, which we talked about. But he currently has an announced movie that he is going to direct, and I'm very excited to announce that he will be the director of Five Nights at Freddy's.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
Yeah. I'm going to go on that page and I'm going to see if anybody's attached yet to this movie.
I like how quick you jumped from
like
the fact. I like how quick you jumped from the fact that I made a joke about the other Christopher Columbus and just immediately moved on. But that's fine.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry. I got on this IMDb page and I couldn't.
Can I say something really quick? When you type in Christopher Columbus to Google, you don't get anything remotely close to the director. So if I could just share an interesting thing I just read about the actual Christopher Columbus. He died May 20th, 1506 in Spain, okay?
Okay.
Below it, this is from the Wikipedia page. It says, born 1451 in Genoa, Italy, died May 20th, 1506 in something Spain, I can't pronounce it, and then buried 1898.
Oh.
So,
maybe they moved his body at some point.
Okay. Let's break this down for a minute.
Let's Google. Wait a minute. Where is Christopher Columbus buried?
Well, I can tell you it's in the cathedral.
It is one of the top Google things about Christopher Columbus, so that's something.
I don't get
Sorry,
I get that they used to move graves as they made better ones as the years went by, but let's talk about the fact that he died in 1506 and it says that he was buried in 1898.
They found a lead box that he was buried in.
So they buried his bones they buried his body in 1506. They probably recovered his bones and then reburied them in 1898.
Each city believes they have the real Columbus, and each has built an impressive monument to house his remains.
Man, Christopher Columbus really does get around.
He cloned himself.
Oh my God.
God, if I cloned myself, I could probably find some new countries too.
Well, we all know Christopher Columbus was a piece of shit, but the truth...
Wait a minute. Okay, so we're going to jump back to the other Christopher Columbus really quick.
Oh, please.
And I'm going to talk to you about the Goonies 2 video game that was released in 1987. And I just want to read this plot synopsis to you really quick.
Okay.
And then maybe we can get back to movies. Maybe we can talk more about history. We'll just see where the road takes us.
That's fine.
Now, really quick, before I make a fool of myself, and you can go ahead, you can delete this part of the podcast. Mickey or Mikey? I don't remember from the Goonies.
It's Mikey, and that's 100% staying in there.
Okay. So now that we're back and now that you've deleted that from the podcast, Mikey, let me restart. Okay. Mikey's friends the Goonies, have been kidnapped by the Fratellis, an Italian family of small-time crooks and counterfeiters.
It's the Fratellis, and that's named after that band you like too.
Okay, so let me restart. Mikey's friends, the Goonies, have been kidnapped. All right, let me restart. You can just cut all of this out.
Oh yeah, here we go. Snip, snip. Yep, cut. Yep.
Yeah, okay. Mikey's friends, the Goonies, have been kidnapped by the Fratellis, an Italian family of small-time crooks and counterfeiters. Mikey must rescue all 6 of his friends and free a captured mermaid named Annie.
That sounds great. What part of that's the joke?
Mermaids in the original movie?
No, there's no mermaid in the original movie. But the Fratellis are the family that like capture them in the original movie.
Ah, so they captured him again.
Yeah, hey, it's look at Home Alone and Home Alone 2. How did Kevin get stupid enough to be caught twice? But you know,
I'm gonna type in the Goonies mermaid to see if it's just something I'm forgetting.
Oh, make sure you search that on Bing so that you know you're getting the safest possible search too.
There's something from the website giantbomb.com about Annie the Mermaid, and I'm just gonna save this for later. I'll read this in a bit.
Hell yeah.
There's a whole wiki about it on there.
Wait, have you not seen the Goonies before?
I have, but it's been years.
That's a great movie. I'm significantly more excited for our Goonies 2 than I am for our Gremlins 3.
Well, wait, we don't know who's directing Goonies 2. Would you like me to find out?
I literally don't care. You could say Christopher Columbus and I'd be happy. You could say the...
Well, I mean, wouldn't you want Christopher Columbus to be the one who's directing it?
Which one are we talking about?
There's literally nothing on this page.
That's fine. They've been talking about making
something on this page.
They've been talking about making a Goonies 2 forever.
It does star Corey Feldman, Robert Davey, and Cyndi Lauper.
I'm very
Is Cyndi Lauper still alive?
Oh yeah.
Bean Soup Annie. Wait, is she the mermaid?
I can only hope.
I'm so confused.
I'm so
Maybe
excited.
I need to watch the Goonies.
I'm honestly like this started out as a joke. Now I'm fucking hyped for the idea of a Goonies 2.
I know if it's based on the video game.
The Goonies was like, it was out before we were even alive, I think, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, it was in the 80s.
I literally didn't watch the Goonies until I was an adult, but I fucking love that movie.
Yeah, no, it's great.
I love that movie. All right, so that's that. So we covered what was the last movie we fucking talked about?
we haven't talked about my last movie yet.
Oh my god!
And you'll be happy to know that my number 1 favorite movie of all time is The Goonies.
No, it was Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 2.
No. That was a lie. I made that up. My favorite movie of all time is, and I was really hoping that you would guess it, but since you did not, I'll just go ahead and say it, is Alien.
I was going to say that, but I was concerned because I thought it wasn't your favorite. I knew it was one of your favorites, but I didn't know that it was your favorite. No, which I meant to tell you, I bought, because that Alien documentary, I bought it because it didn't transfer to our movies thing.
Yeah, I was really mad about that it didn't
It's
transfer.
On sale on iTunes this week for $7.99, so I bought it so I can watch it.
Hey, you're going to love it. It's really good.
I'm excited. It's been on my wish list forever, and it was like, I think it was at $14.99 for a long time.
Yeah. You want me to tell you my favorite thing about that movie?
Oh, yeah. Go ahead.
Is that whenever you go to the IMDb page, it has terrible user review scores. Would you like to know why?
Why is that?
Because at one part in the movie, there's some lady on it, and she talks about how the whole movie was about destroying the patriarchy. And because of that one line from the movie, a bunch of people decided that they were going to go on IMDb and they were going to give it bad scores.
Oh, this is IMDb is actually kind of fucking awful if you start reading reviews, which I never do anymore. I just go on there for trivia and information in general, but I personally think they should. I think that they should get rid of reviews and just stick to stars. Like let people use stars to rate movies.
Yeah.
And just get rid of the reviews altogether because it's one of the most toxic things I've ever seen.
I got done with that movie or that documentary and I was like, that was so good. I was like, I want to check IMDb. I want to see like if there's stuff about it, about like the making of even that documentary.
Yeah.
And then my eye caught the user review and I was like, what's going on? And then I started reading it and every single review was about that one moment where somebody, and it wasn't even like she was like, this whole movie is about that. She's like, I feel like at times this movie is about bringing down the patriarchy because of Sigourney Weaver's character. And it's just these people trashing it on IMDb just for that one line is ridiculous to me.
There's a sick part of me that wants to know how each and every one of these people felt about Prometheus now.
Yeah. But hey, let's talk about Alien really.
One of the greatest.
We'll go to Prometheus probably at some point in this conversation.
One of the greatest. Alien is one of the greatest sci-fi horror movies ever made. Probably, arguably, the greatest sci-fi movie ever made.
I would agree with that 100%.
Yeah.
I also really think it's what started the horror sci-fi genre.
I think so. Yeah.
Because I mean, I think at that point The Thing was made. I don't know. At least the original The Thing. But it was like, I think, the first movie to really take place in space.
There was a movie, The Thing, before John Carpenter's Thing, wasn't there?
Yeah, I think it was like in the 50s or 60s, maybe.
You know, it's so weird. It's so weird to find out that there was a movie before that. Do you want to know the biggest example of finding out that there was an original to something that I didn't think had an original that fucked me up the most?
Go for it.
There was a Scarface from 1920s.
Oh yeah, no.
That fucked me up.
A couple years ago, whenever they released the Blu-ray, there was like a version of that movie that had the original on it.
That's 100% how I found out about it. I had no idea until I got that steelbook in the mail, and I opened it up and I noticed there was a second disc that said Scarface on it, and it was written in like old-timey font, and I'm like, what the fuck is going on? It blew my mind. But yeah, The Thing, I don't know anything about the 50s version, but that John Carpenter 70s, 80s version?
I think 80s. Let me look really quick. The 82.
82. That, I think, by far, I would put The Thing and Alien like almost neck and neck for me as like my favorite like sci-fi horror movies.
Yeah.
Like very close for both of those.
Yeah, no, I mean both of them are just phenomenal. Mm-hmm. That being said, I would choose Alien just because of the fact I enjoy space. I enjoy so much of this idea that there could be so much out there that we just don't know about. And the thing with Alien that I love is just like, so it opens up and then these people are like slowly awakening inside of the ship. And at first there's really nothing like really that's going on that much. Mm-hmm. They get some emergency beacon from some other planet and they're like, we'll guess we'll stop. And they're kind of like arguing about stopping. And then they finally do. And the second that they see that spaceship, I knew that this was going to be one of my favorite movies of all time. Because again, it was just so much of this idea of just the unknown and them walking on the spaceship, them seeing the engineer like sitting there with a telescope, mm-hmm. them going further into the craft and then finding the eggs. Yeah. At that point, right, I was just enamored with that movie, and then it kept going and became this like horror movie that has just such a satisfying ending too. Like everything that happens in that movie, even though the beginning is a little slow, the way that movie ramps up until it gets to the end is like nothing else I think I've ever seen. I fucking love that movie, and I think it's one of the few that like you can watch it develop from like sci-fi to horror as it goes throughout. Like a lot of movies mix that genre and it's like, oh, here's a horror movie in space. But if you didn't know anything about Alien going into it and didn't know that it was a horror movie, you really weren't going to find out until like halfway through. Right. Right.
But I like recently somebody posted on Twitter that one of the things they use to fall asleep is like ambient like space sounds. And one of the things that somebody posted that reminded me of Alien was like Star Trek, one of the spaceships from Star Trek. There's a 10-hour long video on YouTube that's just noises of like ambient noise of what it would sound like if you were on that spaceship.
To be on a spaceship?
So
that's cool.
The way I view Alien is if I'm going to rewatch that movie now, I almost have to have the lights on. Not because I'm scared of the dark, which I totally fucking am. But it's because if I sit there and like recline in my recliner or lay on the couch and watch that movie, I'm going to fall asleep because that movie is so chill and so like, almost relaxing in a weird way at first.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Especially at the beginning, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I agree with you, right? Like you just, it really lulls you into this state of relaxation.
Yeah.
And then everything just starts going off the rails whenever they get to that planet.
Oh yeah. No, it like goes in, like it comes in stages. Like, you know, it transpires from like sci-fi movie to horror movie. And it, like once shit starts popping off, it just goes.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing that's so cool about that movie is that like they brought on I'm blanking on his name. Why am I blanking on his name? The guy who did the art, Giger. Yeah.
Yeah.
They brought on HR Giger to do like a lot of the creature designs and stuff. And that I think something else that just made the movie so iconic, because that creature and the look of that creature, there's still nothing else that looks anything close to it.
Mm-hmm.
Or anything that like brings the sense of dread that you see or you think about whenever you see that creature.
Yeah.
And they did such a good job in that first movie, kind of keeping that creature hidden throughout it, and only being able to kind of see pieces of it. That I don't know. There's just something about that movie that is just masterfully like constructed.
Every part of it is like made with purpose, and it's one of the most convincing spaceships I've seen outside of like Star Wars or Star Trek or like something that's like really iconic like sci-fi.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I think that's the thing too. Like the ship just feels so alive, right? It has that computer that's like speaking to them throughout the movie, Mother, and then you find out like halfway through that one of the characters is an android, and really there was like no reason to think that any of the characters were an android, but whenever that moment happens, you're like, oh, I mean, of course that could happen in this movie. Like of course that's a piece of this movie that like it makes sense in this world that they constructed. It makes sense on this spaceship that this is a thing. And it's so out of left field, but it fits so well into the whole thing.
Oh, absolutely. I think in general these days, I think I'm just a Ridley Scott fan, and I have Alien to thank for that. I think really the only Ridley Scott movie I'm not too hot on is the original Blade Runner.
Yeah, I think I would agree with that, actually. I've never been able to finish that movie.
You want to talk about, like, I think Blade Runner might be one of the slowest movies I've ever seen. Like, Alien at least, like, picks up after a while, but I feel like Blade Runner just took too long for me to enjoy. I actually liked Blade Runner 2049 much more than I liked the original. And I know most people that are listening to this probably want to fucking slit my throat right now, but I just
They've
don't...
already stopped listening at this point.
Probably.
They just clicked off.
They heard us start talking about The Goonies being your favorite movie, and they stopped it there. But I'm in a weird place where I have a fucking poster for The Martian from Mondo in my apartment. I love The Martian like almost as much as I love Alien. I fucking love The Martian for whatever reason. I just absolutely love that movie. And I love Gladiator. I don't know how I still don't know how I feel about Alien Covenant.
Yeah, we can talk about all the sequels in a minute.
Okay.
We can come back to that because I think it's worthwhile to since we're having this conversation about Alien.
Yeah.
But
Totally.
I feel like I cut you off. I didn't want you to go on, and just not going to go on.
No, you're fine.
No, I think the last thing I'll say about Alien, and then we can start and all the other. That dinner scene is just maybe like one of the scariest, but maybe one of the most exciting movie scenes of all time.
Oh, for sure.
Like, because that starts happening, and again, like, it's so much of this idea of the unknown, and then the alien pops out of the stomach, the chest burster.
Yeah.
And like, there's blood everywhere, like. And it just that scene coming out of nowhere, right? Yeah. Just bringing a sense of dread, but also at the same time, like, what's going to happen next? How are they going to deal with this? And I think that the way that the movie handles that is just really, really good.
That's like one of the most iconic, like, horror sci-fi scenes of all time. And just like whenever you see movie moment, like not medleys, but like, what's the word I'm looking for?
Highlights,
like like highlights or like classic moment montages, I guess is the word I was looking for, but that always comes up from everybody who's seen it at least.
Yeah. Let's go ahead and we can start talking about the other Alien.
Aliens is just as good in a different way.
Right. Aliens is a really, really good movie. I don't think that I don't love it anywhere near as much as I love the original.
I agree.
But I can totally understand the people that do.
There's people who like Aliens better than Alien because it's what they wanted the first one to be, like an action movie.
Yeah.
And leave it up to James Cameron to make one of the most iconic action movies of all time, as he's known to do. But
And it's a sequel to a movie that he didn't even make the original to.
yeah, like it's very. I mean, at the time and even now, still, it's very unprecedented for that to happen. Where the sequel is like, I don't know the box office numbers or anything, but to me, Alien seemed more successful.
Yeah, I feel like it gets talked about more.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but I think
I feel
overall,
like the reason it gets talked about more is just because of the fact that it is so successful and it was such a good movie, and it was based on the original Alien, but it was also completely different.
oh yeah, totally.
I'm looking at box office numbers. They probably would have made about the same looking at budget and inflation, and
I think
yeah, they probably would have made about the same amount of money.
it's weird because I think all these years later, the reason why we talk about Aliens as opposed to Alien as much as we do is just because usually the sequel is never better, and in a lot of people's minds, Aliens is better because it's what they wanted, not necessarily because it's the better movie.
Yeah,
But because
and people just tend to stick to adventure and action movies more than they do horror movies.
Yeah,
right. Horror movies, there's only a select number of people that get into that, but action and adventure are such a broad spectrum of people like those movies.
Totally.
So I can totally understand why there's more buy-in to Aliens than Alien.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's so cool that they made a different movie than the first one. They kept all the not all the characters. They kept the main character. They kept the same creatures, and then they just multiplied the creatures by like hundreds and threw them all at them.
Totally. Now you have to talk about Alien 3 and 4 because I don't think I've ever seen them.
So Alien 3 has a really interesting story behind it, and I won't go too much into that, but we talked about David Fincher earlier.
Yeah.
He was the director of Alien 3.
Yeah, which is, I need to watch it because I love David Fincher, but...
So there's actually two cuts of that movie. There is the cut that was released to theaters, and there is a David Fincher cut. Because he wanted to make this movie, and I think about halfway through the studio interfered and said, we don't want you to make this movie that you want to make.
Yeah.
So it ended up, they had him make a completely different movie than what he was planning on doing. And it's kind of a mess because of that.
Yeah.
You can kind of tell when you watch the theatrical version of Alien 3 that it's just kind of a disaster about halfway through.
Yeah.
It really kind of loses its idea, it loses pacing and all of that. I actually have never watched the David Fincher cut.
Oh, wow. Okay, yeah.
One of these days, I want to sit and watch those two, the Alien 3, the theatrical, and the Fincher cut back to back.
Yeah.
Just to kind of see the difference between, because from what I've heard, they are completely different.
Oh, yeah. I've heard that, too.
Yeah. Alien Resurrection
I've heard
bad.
This is the bad part of the franchise, which is why I haven't seen it. But I don't know why I lumped the third one in with the fourth one, because I think the third one's supposed to be a lot better than the fourth one. But
it is, yeah. Alien Resurrection. Let me think. 'Cause Alien Resurrection, it has Winona Ryder in it. It was directed by... maybe I don't know who it's directed by. Oh, hey, this is fun. Here's a fun little bit of movie trivia for you. Alien Resurrection was directed by the same guy who made Amelie.
Oh, my God.
So
holy shit! What a...
That's it. We don't need to talk anymore about Alien Resurrection.
Shut it down there. That's the best piece of trivia we've had in this entire hour and a half.
Yeah. Okay. Prometheus. What are your thoughts on Prometheus?
I enjoyed it. I think I've only seen it like twice, and I liked it for what it was. I didn't really hate it like a lot of other people hated it for seemingly no reason, but
yeah.
I like it a lot. I think I put it with Alien Covenant, where I can't really give you an opinion one way or the other. I think I enjoyed them both for what they were, but I don't think that they're movies that I'm going to go back and rewatch as much as I'd watch Alien or Aliens. But
right. I think everybody was so excited that Ridley Scott was coming back to make those two movies.
Yeah.
And then he kind of just didn't. He kind of just did his own thing with both of them.
Oh, yeah,
and
totally.
I think some people were just kind of taken aback by that. Because I think whenever he announced Prometheus, it was originally going to be like considered a prequel to Alien, which it ended up being. Yeah. But it was supposed to be like a direct prequel to Alien that was supposed to answer questions about Alien.
Yeah.
And then Prometheus came out and really didn't answer any questions. In fact, it brought up more questions than what it answered.
Oh,
and
totally.
then Alien Resurrection comes around, or not Resurrection, sorry, Alien Covenant comes around, and then just kind of throws out a bunch of stuff from Prometheus, and then doesn't really, again, answer any questions.
Yeah, for sure.
And then I don't know if he'll ever make a third one in that series that also isn't a series because he named the first one Prometheus and the second one Alien. But...
Well, I know for a while because Ridley Scott, like, he doesn't really do sequels that often, but they're talking about him doing Gladiator 2 at some point, but the IMDb page hasn't been updated since 2018, so I don't take that with a grain of salt, I guess, but...
Yeah, I don't know. That would be weird. I can't even imagine a Gladiator 2.
It would be strange for sure.
Yeah, that was on sale the other day on iTunes. I picked that up for $5. I need to watch it again. That was again a movie I watched whenever I was younger, and I was buying every movie I could get my hands on. I remember liking it. I just don't remember much about it.
No, I remember Joaquin Phoenix being really good in it. I've personally never thought
the Joker.
Yeah, which I still haven't seen yet. But Christa and I talked about that on the Oscars a little bit about how we are waiting to get in the right frame of mind to watch Joker, and I just don't think that time's ever going to come. So we kind of just have to force ourselves to watch it, I think. So
oh man, I need to watch that episode, and I wanted to hear you guys talk about that.
Well,
being in the right frame of mind to watch the Joker.
Well, I told her I
get 100% what you mean. It just is funny to.
It's getting harder and harder to prepare myself for watching it because I truly don't know if I'm gonna like it or not, and it's also hard to imagine getting the idea of the Joker isolated from Batman.
Right.
And so, because when I look back on Batman stuff, the only things that I still talk about Batman related are my absolute favorite Batman thing is the animated series where Kevin Conroy does the voice of Batman and Mark Hamill did the Joker, which those are the two, in my opinion at least, and I think Ben would agree with me at least, those are the two best Batman and Joker performances I've seen. I mean, Heath Ledger was great, obviously, but Mark Hamill did the voice of Joker so well in those animated movies and games and stuff. But... yeah, it's so hard to imagine watching a Joker movie not thinking about Heath Ledger and Mark Hamill and the 1966 Batman that I love and that Joker, and it's going to be very hard to not view it as a comic book movie, even though I know it's the farthest thing from it.
Yeah. But since we're already talking about the Oscars, I would like you to know that I am halfway through Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Oh yeah, so how are you liking that?
I love it so far. I'm really into it. I need to finish it, right?
Yeah, it's
an hour and a half, and it I don't know. It doesn't really seem like a movie. I should have stopped watching.
It doesn't really. There's nothing really that crazy that happens, and the plot doesn't really. There's not really any crazy twists or anything. It's pretty straightforward movie. But I think
it kind of seems like that. It's kind of just there's a plot, but the plot is that it's just him living in. Hollywood,
I talked about, so I said, I told Aaron, I want Aaron to listen to the Oscars podcast when we release it, which it should be going up on Monday the 17th, I believe. So by the time you hear this podcast, the Oscars podcast will already be out. So go check that out on our YouTube channel if you haven't already. But I think I'm at the point where Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is my favorite Tarantino movie, and Pulp Fiction is right there with it, because Pulp Fiction is where I started to love Tarantino, and I think Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is him, him absolutely nailing what he does. He's tried a bunch of different things in between those two movies, but I think this is him getting back to what he's really good at doing, and the world is so believable, and I love the golden age of Hollywood, and I know this movie takes place near the end of what was considered the golden age of Hollywood, but it just genuinely, I can rewatch that movie. So I've seen it, when I see a movie in theaters, I don't ever feel like I immediately want to watch it again usually, but Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, I bought it the day it came out on digital. I watched it again. I've since watched it again, so I've seen it 3 times, and I absolutely love it. I adore that movie, but yeah.
Yeah. No, I need to finish it. Like I said, I'm really liking it.
It's
I don't
fantastic.
know if it will reach Inglourious Bastards heights for me.
See, I think you and most of my friends, and Christa included, that's their favorite movie, and that's probably my 3 or 4 Tarantino movie. I don't have a Tarantino movie I don't like. Jackie Brown is the lowest on my ranking, but I still like that movie quite a bit. So he's one of the rare directors where I like every single thing that he's done. And I know a lot of people didn't like Death Proof from the Grindhouse series that they did, but I even enjoyed that movie a lot, even though it would be near the bottom of my list. But the thing I'm finding out about Tarantino is that other directors, I would put movies near the bottom of my favorites list for them because I didn't like that movie, but I genuinely don't think I dislike anything he's done.
Yeah.
So that's just where I'm at with it. And I think I'm almost to that point with Ridley Scott also, except I just don't know how I feel about. I don't like Blade Runner all that much, and I haven't seen Prometheus and Alien Covenant in a while. But
yeah, I think I'm gonna watch Alien Covenant later today.
I think I might watch that Alien documentary later today. Now that we've been talking about it so much, honestly. So
listen, you'll like it. It's good.
I'm looking forward to it. But,
all right, as we end, I have one more movie for us to talk about.
Sure.
The Source Code.
Jesus Christ.
That's it. That's all
That's the bit? That's it?
That's the bit. That's it. That's all I got. I didn't think of it past that. I just was thinking about the movie Source Code and thought I would bring it up.
Hilarious. I haven't thought about that movie in a long time. It's one of those ones
Let's talk about our favorite Jake Gyllenhaal movies.
Oh, man. Donnie Darko, Nightcrawler. I think those.
Hey, did you watch the Sack Lunch Bunch on Netflix?
No, I haven't.
Okay. Hey, do me a favor. At some point today, it's an hour long. I don't want you to watch the whole thing. I want you to go until the last 10 minutes of that movie, and I just want you to watch the last 10 minutes.
Okay.
And maybe I've already kind of spoiled the surprise appearance of a celebrity that's going to be there, but it's worthwhile.
Okay.
Watching the last 10 minutes of that movie.
Yeah, I don't know how much of a John Mulaney fan I am, actually. I tried watching a little bit of his stand-up once, and I wasn't that into it. I know a lot of people our age think that he's like the new comedy god or whatever, but I don't think I'm that into him.
Oh, that's because all stand-up is horrible.
Oh, I wouldn't go that far. I like a lot of stand-up comedians. I used to be way more into stand-up than I am now, but the problem is, like, most stand-up stuff is like Netflix specials now.
Yeah.
Like, when I was into stand-up specials, it was like when you had to buy the CD or stream the CD to listen to it. And I know some of them still do the CDs, but a lot of it's like, I don't know. It's hard to explain. Like Mike Birbiglia, I used to love his stuff, and now he's doing like movies and like really experimental stuff, and he's doing Broadway stuff now too. But
I think it's worthwhile. I want to bring up, I actually really do like comedians. I have a really hard time sitting on a couch and watching a stand-up comedian on Netflix.
I lump in stand-up comedy with like podcasts. Like usually I'll be like playing a game or doing something else while I just listen to it. I usually don't have to be watching it to get the effect.
Yeah.
That's pretty much where I'm at with it. Well, from Alien to stand-up comedy, we covered it all here today in episode 5 of
Source Code.
And Source Code, just the mention of it. Nothing more, just the mention of it. Just so you remember
the source. About Lord of the Rings at all?
We didn't talk about Lord of the Rings at all.
Oh, I think I was going to bring that up whenever we were talking about let's go back to Harry Potter, the second Fantastic Beasts, and I was going to say that it reminded me of the Two Towers. That's it. That's all I got.
Let's save it for next time, because I want to bring you back for another movie episode once I've given some of the other people a chance to talk about their favorites. But I want to have you back on. We can cover your next 5, whatever they are.
My dirt road movies.
That's right. Aaron's top 5 dirt road movies will be in the next episode whenever he's on.
You know 3 of them. Do you remember 3 of my dirt road movies?
Dragon Wars, Reign of Fire, and what was the third one?
I think we decided that Resident Evil was going to be one of my dirt road.
Yeah.
But I think I'll change that. I don't think that's official.
I want you to come up with 4 Dragon movies and Resident Evil as your top 5.
I don't even know if I could think of 2 other movies that have dragons in them.
Just say Game of Thrones. We'll forget that it's not a movie.
I can say the 4th Harry Potter movie.
Yeah, that was all about dragons.
Yeah, so that's... okay, before we end this, we got to get one more movie with a dragon in it.
That should be fairly easy. How to Train Your Dragon?
No, it can't be animated. I only like those real dragons.
Words to live by. It can't be animated.
Oh, The Hobbit.
Okay, that's Smaug. Yep.
And I'm gonna get rid of I'm getting rid of Resident Evil, and I'm gonna put Aragon on my list.
Jesus Christ. The fact, I get that it's a dragon list, but
my top 5 dirt road movies.
Okay. What? I know that you're doing a dragon list, but the fact that you kicked off Resident Evil for Aragon.
Dirt road movies.
Dirt road movies? Okay.
Yeah, not a dragon list.
It's a dragon list.
Please be respectful of my list.
Okay. So, spoilers, that's Aaron's top 5 dirt road movies. All right, well, that's going to do it today for episode 5 of the A&G cast. This was episode 1 of the Our Favorite Movies arc. I don't know when episode 2 will be coming, but I know at some point I'm going to try to get all my friends on here to talk about their favorite movies with me, and at some point I'll do mine, of course, and I'll probably end up doing like 10 or so of mine and break it up into parts. But thanks to Aaron for being here today to record. Please like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't done so already. We are on social media. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Those accounts are run primarily by my wife, Christa, who you'll know from the 100 Baby Challenge series she does with The Sims 4 on our YouTube channel. We've got some exciting stuff coming to you on the channel. We've got a new series from me and Alex that should have premiered by now, but I'm not going to talk about it just yet, just in case. We've got more Division Dude streams coming, maybe some more Border Boys streams coming in the next couple months. But yeah, follow us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Give us a subscription on YouTube, Twitch, and Mixer so that you don't miss any of the latest streams and news for the channel. Thanks to everybody out there for watching. Thanks to Aaron for recording this with me, and we will see you guys next time.